My husband John did a complete 180 and I don't know what to make of it. Hi Reddit. I'm Debra and I've never posted here before, but I really need some outside perspective on something that's been on my mind for a while. My husband John and I have been together for years. He's always been a good man, hardworking, loving, and a truly great father. He's also very career-driven and successful. But after we had kids, something in our relationship shifted. The affection, flirtation, and intimacy we used to share basically disappeared. John used to be all over me date nights, weekend getaways, lots of kissing, cuddling, and sex. But once we became parents, all of that faded. Our sex life became mechanical. I tried to keep the spark alive. I stayed in shape and initiated often, but his energy felt absent. He never rejected me outright, but he didn't really participate either. It became so lackluster that I just stopped trying. Still, I loved him and had no thoughts of leaving or cheating. I figured this was just what happens in marriage after kids. I accepted it. Then, about a year ago, John completely surprised me. Out of nowhere, he arranged for a babysitter and took me away for a weekend. I was shocked but happy. And that weekend? He was like a whole new man. Affectionate, flirty, full of life. Even in bed, it was like he'd transformed. He was engaged, passionate, and did things he hadn't done in a decade, and did them really well, which wasn't the case before. And it didn't stop when we came home. He kept up the affection, the connection, the intimacy. Not long after, I noticed he was losing weight. Then he started to get toned. He's in the best shape I've ever seen him. Honestly, I have trouble keeping my hands off him now. When I asked him what brought all this on, he said it was just turning 40 and wanting to be a better husband. That's it, no big revelation, no crisis. And while I believe him, a part of me is confused. I've read stories about men hitting midlife and getting fit to cheat, but I really don't think that's happening. We use a family location sharing app, and he's either at home or at work. We also share an iPad, so I see his texts. Nothing suspicious. So now I'm just left wondering, what changed? Why now? Can people really just decide to do a complete 180 like that? Any thoughts? Has anyone else experienced something like this? Update. Hi everyone. I posted a couple of days ago about my husband John and the sudden, dramatic shift in our marriage, how he went from distant and checked out to affectionate, romantic, and basically the ideal partner overnight. The response I got was overwhelming. Thank you all, and it gave me the push I needed to finally talk to him. So, I sat John down last night. I told him everything, the good and the confusing. I explained how I'd noticed the shift in him over the past year, how amazing it's been, but also how it left me a little off balance. I told him I wasn't accusing him of anything, but I couldn't stop wondering what exactly sparked the change. At first, he looked a little surprised. He said he thought the change had been obvious and that he assumed I understood. But when I pressed him, he opened up. Apparently, about a year ago, a man in his office, someone he was pretty close to, went through a tough divorce. According to John, this guy admitted that he'd taken his wife for granted for years, stopped being affectionate, stopped trying, let the relationship go stale, and assumed she'd always be there. One day, she just wasn't. John said watching his coworker fall apart really hit him hard. He started reflecting on our marriage and realized he'd been heading down the same road. He said he felt ashamed of how passive and emotionally distant he'd become, how he'd let life, work, and parenting take up all his energy and left me with scraps. He said he didn't want to lose me. He didn't want us to just exist as roommates, going through the motions. That's why he planned that weekend away, started getting back in shape, and made a decision to start showing up for me again. He said he didn't tell me all this at the time because he didn't want it to feel like a performance or a project. He just wanted to quietly prove that I was still his priority. Needless to say, I cried. A lot. I feel so relieved, grateful, and honestly more connected to him than I have in years. Thank you again to everyone who encouraged me to talk to him. I'm really glad I did.